Hey there folks, and welcome to this video, and here I'm going to be talking about Lewis Hamilton, I'm going to be talking about Formula 1, I'm going to be talking about anti-racism, and I'm going to be talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm going to start off by talking about the objective kind of like facts and figures of all of this, and then I'm going to be interjecting my own opinion. And let's start off by talking about what happened. So at the Tuscan Grand Prix on Sunday, Lewis Hamilton wore, for the end racism protest and on the podium afterwards, a shirt calling for justice and the arrest of the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. And on the back it said say her name and had a photo of Taylor. And after the race, which Lewis won, the Daily Mail ran an article saying that Lewis might face an investigation by the FIA. And since they've brought out this ruling saying that, well, he's not going to be facing any kind of investigation. This was clarified to the BBC, and then the Daily Mail ran an article a few hours ago saying that it wasn't going to be. And on the day where a verdict, multi-billion-dollar settlement was going to be coming forward, of course, no police officers really charged with the crime still. Meanwhile, people are still campaigning for justice for Breonna Taylor. Daily Mail were like, yeah, Lewis Hamilton's not going to be investigated because they have to, retcon their own spiel. So, hate-mongering and the Daily Mail kind of go like this. It's like hate-mongering at the Sun. Or Daily Express. Or, really, most right-wing papers are published here in the UK and United States. But I digress. And that was a little bit of a dejected opinion because we are going to go forward to the more kind of opinionated section now. And firstly, I want to point out this kind of rule that people were accusing Lewis of having breached. It's Article 10.6.2 of the International Sporting Code. And this section, 10.6, concerns advertising on automobiles. And 10.6.2 says competitors taking part in international competitions are not allowed to affix to their automobiles advertising that is political or religious in nature or that is prejudicial to the interests of the FIA. And people were saying that this is what Lewis was breaking. And there have been occasions of people in F1 or feeder series breaking this. A couple of years ago, Santino Ferrucci, and we'll be coming back to talk about Ferrucci in a bit actually, broke this at the Silverstone weekend, the last weekend he did in F2, when he didn't actually break it, but he nearly broke it because he tried to get a Trump livery run on an F2 car. Which, yeah, would have violated the code. However, there's a key point to this. It says, are not allowed to fix to their automobiles. Lewis isn't a car. I mean, I know he's in the Cars films, but he isn't a car. So he's allowed to wear what he wants. And then the question is this considered political in that kind of nature? Well, it depends what the definition of political is, really. To some degree, you could argue that anything is political. You'd argue that any kind of advertising is indicative of political capitalism, if you wanted to take it to some kind of extremity. You could argue that putting end racism on the cars is political, or We Racist One. Though again, you might have a harder time doing that, which is why the logos are designed the way they are, because saying things like LGBT rights or Black Lives Matter is considered taboo. But if you say end racism, it's like, yes, because if you disagree with ending racism, you must be a racist. Or at least that's the logic they try to employ. But yeah, okay. My main concern here is if they were to investigate Lewis, why now, and why only Lewis? Because a couple of weeks ago I made a video about Kimi Räikkönen, who's been wearing a mask at the last few end racism protests, which has an iron cross on it. And look, I'm somebody who has graduated with a degree in history, politics, and international relations. with particular attention paid to terrorism and far-right politics. So I know that whenever you see an iron cross, it doesn't necessarily mean somebody's a member of the far right. But it doesn't mean that they're not, because it's a symbol that's still used by the far right. I mean, likewise, Lando Norris in the Belgian Grand Prix was going to run a helmet with a lion on the back of it. And then he decided not to, because of the political connotations surrounding it, due to, I believe it was nationalists in, I think it's Flemish region of Belgium, that use the lion. And I ask why now, because is it because he said justice for Breonna Taylor? Like, in what world are you going to disagree with an EMT being shot by police who were not looking for her and defend the police? I thought we were saying thank you to frontline workers. Meanwhile, people are saying no. There should be no justice for the frontline worker who was murdered by the police in her own home at night. Yeah, that's apparently too much to ask for. But I also say why now, because Lewis Hamilton was wearing Black Lives Matter shirts. They say Black Lives Matter on them at every end racism protest. So why is it now that there's a problem? Why is it now that there's a problem? Look, I'm going to say it. Justice for Breonna Taylor. Those cops should be arrested and tried. And, in my opinion, with the evidence that we've seen so far, and we have to wait for more evidence in court, which I believe is there, will be found guilty. Like, no amount of money is going to forgive the fact that an EMT was murdered by police. No amount of money will forgive that. Same with George Floyd. Same with Elijah McCain. And F1 as a sport is just lagging behind. The fact that so few people are getting behind Lewis in this, and there are questions being asked of Mercedes' commitment to it, to the cause, to Lewis. I don't really understand this. I mean, I get people don't like politics in sport, and I think that's a lie. People don't like politics that they disagree with in sport, because I don't like politics that I disagree with in sport. I don't. That's why I criticise Carlos Sainz for saying, I am a free man, when he's asked whether or not he's going to kneel. Or Charles Leclerc saying, I don't do politics because he has such a place of privilege that he could get away with it. Yeah, it's not a bad thing to say that you don't like seeing the politics you don't like reflected in something that you enjoy. You have to question why. Why is it you don't like those politics? Why is it that asking for justice for an EMT who was killed by police, but seemingly no reason, why is that too much? Why is saying Black Lives Matter too much? Why is kneeling as a sign of solidarity too much? I'll leave you with that. And I'll leave you with this as well. I still moderate my comment sections on here. I started doing that, Christ, about 4 months ago now. And you know why? Because when Lewis Hamilton called out F1 for being silent on racism at a time when the race ran an interview with Santino Ferrucci. Yeah. The guy who tried to run the Trump livery on the car that I mentioned back earlier in the video, who was dropped by Haas and dropped by his team, I believe it was Trident at the time, after running Iron Maney off the road and being alleged of racist abuse. Yeah, I mean, motorsport's come along a bit, especially open wheelers. They come along a bit, because now Scott Mitchell is writing op-eds saying this is why this is happening. But look, motorsport just needs to do better. And that's not on one man to do. That's not on Lewis to make the change. The fact that you can't get all 20 drivers to kneel, but the English Premier League can manage to do that, or any kind of fixtures in English football were able to do that. You know, English football is often criticised for the racism in it. Sometimes quite rightly. But the fact that you could get all 22 players on the pitch to kneel, as well as the staff around the pitch, and you can't get 20 F1 drivers to do it once, and in fact it's gone backwards over time, from 14 to 13. This is something horrible about a sport that I feel like I love. But it's hard for me because I love it, but at the same time, I don't feel like it represents me. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you around.